moving to something a little different. I found this very interesting. And I know you've done some kind of big picture projections for this season, and even went as far as putting out some early bowl projections. What did you come up with for Notre Dame, and explain to the group how you got there?
Yeah, I was just looking around because it's like, I don't know. As soon as the season ends last year, you get the way too early top 25s that come out. And then you get the way too early bowl projections. And I start looking around online, was it this week, late last, whichever it was. And I'm looking, and it's like this recurring theme. It's like, hey, if you're a Notre Dame fan, get your airfare to Miami because everyone and their mother seemingly has the Irish going to the Orange Bowl this year and taking on an ACC opponent. Some people have it. Hey, a lot of people have NC State, I know, is one of them, but an ACC opponent in that game. And I'm like, okay, well, you look at Notre Dame's schedule. You have the matchup of all matchups to start a year in Ohio State to start the season. You've got Clemson, the biggest home game of the year, to start November, and you close at USC. Those should be three pretty solid teams. Now, I think USC's got a lot of flaws, but I think the Pac-12 sucks, and they're going to get away with being their 7-on-7 team that they are and win a lot of games. And
that's exactly how I see it.
Get away with it.
Yep.
But so if Notre Dame were to go 11-1, I really don't see how this team gets held out of a college football playoff. So then in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, they're going to the Orange Bowl. That's got to be 10-2. 9-3 is going to be probably a loss too many. So you're looking at 10-2. And I'm like, I think that you go in, first year head coach, first go around for Marcus Freeman as a head coach. It's like, yeah, 10-2, that's pretty damn good because you know what's coming. The cavalry's coming in terms of recruiting. We've gone over that time and time again. You feel good about the 10-2. But then I started kind of breaking down, like, how do you get the 10-2? And any way that you shape it and you put it Notre Dame at 10-2, maybe it's the 5 years of 10+ wins, but it's like, it's going to be heartbreaking if this team goes 10-2 because of the how, not so much the end result. I think a lot of people sign up for, hey, 10-2, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
First year quarterback, Tyler Buckner, the questions at running back and receiver that we just went over, but it's more so the how. And that's all right, you lose to Ohio State and say you lose to Clemson. It feels like it's more of the same. You lose the biggest games. It feels like it's more of the same, just like it was under Brian Kelly. You're 10.
Okay, wait. It feels like that on the surface. But if you really look at it, it isn't the same thing. There's an actual light at the end of this tunnel. And
I understand that, but we also only have this year to judge it on, too.
Yeah, that's true. But it's a talent tunnel, and there's a light at the end of it that never existed under the other guy.
And existed since the early 90s, honestly.
Yeah, but the other part about if it's 10-2 that's tough is, like, you're asking how you get there. If you're 10-2 and you're figuring one of the two is week 1, that's not a lot of wiggle room because you already got that one loss that only gives you one more to play with the rest of the year. So you better beat everybody you have more talent than, and then you lose one more. So I don't know.
Think about it this way. All right, so say you end up 10-2, you lose to Ohio State to start the year.
Mm-hmm.
So then it means you're either losing your biggest home game of the year to Clemson,
right,
or you're running the table. You're winning 10 straight with a college football playoff appearance on the line, and you're losing the
LA
between Freeman and Lincoln Riley at USC.
Yeah,
and so you can win every game from the Marshall game all the way through the Boston College game by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. But you lose the opener, you lose the closer to the regular season, that loss against USC is going to just feel like such an epic disappointment.
You cannot let that USC Notre Dame rivalry flip like that in Lincoln Riley's first year. You can't relinquish the power we've had over that. He's there 1 year and you're going to just lose to him, and then that pendulum swings. No, you cannot. There's a lot of pressure. You cannot let that rivalry flip year 1. You can't against a 7-on-7 team. You can't let that happen.
Well, let me ask you this question. Like, okay, I say Notre Dame, you can sign up right now. They're going 10-2. Like, we're not debating it. Say they are I tell you right now, they will be 10-2 at the end of this regular season. But
Okay.
you get to pick the 10 wins and you get to pick the 2 losses. Who are your 10 wins? Well, I don't need to ask you the 10 wins. Who are the 2 losses that you're okay with it being? Is it as simple as Ohio State and Clemson?
Ohio
Is it
State, Ohio
Ohio
State.
State and like say a BYU in Vegas? Like
I think here's what I think. I think it would probably be, if you're asking me the 2 I could
Ohio State's
tolerate the
obvious.
most, then it's going to be Ohio State and Clemson. Because you can't give up that loss to USC. That's too important. That the dynamics of that rivalry, that's different. You have got to win that game. You cannot let it be 1 year. Riley's not even close to flipping that roster, and you're going to just lose to them and give them that power. And they're already going to be overinflated because of the weak Pac-12. So no matter what, they're going to think more of themselves than they already do. And USC's all about that momentum up and down. So you can't let that rivalry flip. And here's the other thing. If you lose to Ohio State, at least you know they have more talent than you do on the roster. Okay? Most people can live with that. It's just a fact. So I don't think that's the case with USC. So beat them. Okay? Beat them. 7-on-7 team, weak on the lines this year. Beat them. That should be our strength up front. Beat them. Here's the other thing, though. I feel like people are underestimating what Clemson is. They're still really, really good and have a lot of talent there. And I feel like a lot of the shine on them is kind of quieted down since their hot run. But I still think that's going to be a tough team to play and beat. I do.
Oh God, yeah.
But I think they're getting a lot of people are like, oh, Clemson's their time's over. We got that. Do not count them out. They have a lot of talent. I know that offense struggled last year. Defense is going to be really good. It's a tricky, tough schedule this year in a lot of ways. BYU and Vegas is going to be tough too. That's going to be tougher than a lot of us want to admit.
Yeah, that one's going to be tough. And I think that something about going to North Carolina that always, I never
just bugs you.
That's a series that Notre Dame has just kicked the living crap out of North Carolina historically, but it's just, I do not like that. It's week. Well, there's a bye before the BYU game, but it's a game before BYU, and it's just late September, close the first month. And they have had an uptick in recruiting. Now it's Mac Brown, and it takes Vince Young in order for Mac Brown to actually have a team play to its potential ever.
Yeah.
But I just, that one's unnerving to me a little bit. Not like, oh my God, North Carolina's on schedule. More like, hey, that's going to be the one that's like Virginia Tech has been for Notre Dame for a few years. I'm just like, I can see that one being a Saturday that gets a lot more stressful than it probably needs to be. Like, I just have myself convinced that's already going to happen in that one. But yeah, it's not like, okay, you get your UNLV, you get Navy, you should kick the living tar out of both of them. Same with Marshall and Cal.
Stanford,
yeah. Right. And it's like, you know where your good amount of the wins are coming, but there's a couple of those this year that like get a couple of just, all right, not the easiest out necessarily.
I think 23 and 24 schedules are way tougher than the cycle we had the last couple of years. They're not even close, in my opinion. So I think these schedules are tougher. I mean, if it's 10-2 at the low end with a first-year guy and all the changes and the questions we talked about, trying to flip the roster, integrate a new staff, I mean, geez, even I'm not going to be that mad about that. Like,
I know it's like,
it just doesn't feel right. But 10-2 under year one of Freeman is not 10-2 with Brian Kelly in year 12. They're not the same. The records could be the same, but the dynamic isn't. And
I think that one thing that you brought up earlier tonight was when you were talking about all right, what derails the recruiting? If you fall off and you go 7-5, like 10-2 against that schedule, that should show any questions of like, oh yeah, Freeman can't coach. Like, okay, right. Yeah, we've stated both the reasons, whether it's Clemson, whether it's Ohio State, of why those games are incredibly difficult. And those are two of the top 4 or 5 programs there are in college football right now that you're taking on. And so, yeah, I don't think there's any shame in it. It just feels like it's more of the, all right, another year that we live through, and God bless it, a top 5 team that just can't be taken down.
Yep.
And you live with that because you know that, yeah, the recruiting's not peaking at 7 through 13 or whatever it was kind of under Kelly. It's not plateauing right there. This is the start of something special, and there are greener pastures to come.